These are the easiest strategies at every Town Hall level. I will break each attack down so that you learn skills which can apply at any Town Hall level, so watching through the strategies will help you get the most 3 stars. If you do find this one helpful, you can support the channel before purchases with code JUDO. Even over on the Supercell store, we get a small kickback and it's very much appreciated. After the tutorial, you will be at Town Hall 2 and the easiest 3-star strategy for you is Giants and Archers. Only focus on the defenses, Giants to tank, and try and directly target the defenses with your Archers. Depending on the layout, you might put all of your Giants in one spot, or you might split the Giants and Archers into groups. It's very rare, but you can get a clan castle at Town Hall 2. There would probably be a defending baby dragon, and you would need a clan castle baby dragon of your own to take that out. Just lure it and distract with a couple of Archers, whilst your baby dragon would destroy it and then clean up the rest of the base. Town Hall 3 sees a modification of the Giant and Archers because your army compositions aren't expanding too much. You can lure the clan castle with a Barbarian, draw it to the side of the map where you will enter. This is the easiest access to the mortar. Surround the clan castle with your Archers, make sure you have around about 5 left over, and then send your Giants direct in towards the mortar. I do recommend some wall breakers in this composition so you can send them in sparingly to open up walls and assure your Giants can get to that defense. As they are moving through the base, you will deploy the remaining Archers to clean up non-defensive buildings. Obviously, any clan castle troops you can take will be helpful, and if you are able to get higher level troops, such as balloons or a baby dragon, then send them in to any archer towers and you will easily 3-star. Town Hall 4 sees the balloons and archers. A similar principle to the last level, a barbarian to lure the clan castle, pull them to the side of the map you will attack from. This will be the closest route to the air defense. Circle the defending troops with archers. This means they cannot deal splash onto your troops. And then you will need 8 balloons for the air defense. If you can directly target that, once the balloons move from the air defense and start attracting fire of the remaining archer towers, that's when you can send in 2 balloons to each of those archer towers. Or if the air defense is centralized in the base, you might have to assure you target the archer towers first, and then the balloons will condense over the air defense. Either way, once you've taken out the clan castle and those 3 defenses are down, your balloons cannot be attacked by anything else, so you will clean up the base for a 3-star. Town Hall 5 still sees some balloons, but it's harder to brute force your way through the base with them, so we need the Giants and Wizards to get into the heart of the base first. Luring the clan castle to the corner of the base, which is closest to the air defense. Circle with your archers. You might use 1 giant to tank and sprinkle in a couple of wizards. Typically, if it's ground-based defending clan castle troops, you can use both of your lightning spells here to take them down faster. But then once they are down, deploy your giants so they get the fastest route to the air defense. This might be deploying them in one group or splitting them, since they will move from defense to defense towards the air defense. You just might have to send in those wall breakers to give them access into the base. Make sure to send 1 test wall breaker first, followed by a couple of others, just so they all don't go down to a small bomb, but also make sure you are sending in wizards as the giants are tanking the defenses. If you haven't used your lightning spells on the clan castle troops, just use them on the air defense, but once the air defense is down, you can start triangulating your balloon deployment from the opposite side of the base. Essentially, you're trying to collapse the balloons from defense to defense in towards the wizard tower, and I would also be reinforcing with clan castle balloons of your own to the back end of the base as well. By prioritizing just the defenses, you can get the damage off your troops, and then they can clean up the non-defensive buildings, again resulting in a 3-star. At Town Hall 6, we move back to a full-strength ground army. That is because there are 2 air defenses and the sweeper, so the deployment of balloons becomes a lot more tricky. And at these lower levels, there's not a lot of army composition options that can consistently result in 3 stars for you. So especially at this level, it very much resembles my best attack strategy video, which mainly focuses on the strength of attack strategies, not necessarily the easiest to perform, such as this video. Since we are using a ground-heavy army, you want to enter the base where you can easiest get to the mortars or wizard towers. First, lure the clan castle to the side of the base where this is located. Make sure you're using archers to get them right out of the range of defenses. More than likely, it will be a defending dragon, which is easier to take down, to be honest. Circling with archers and wizards, just use a giant or a couple of barbarians to tank underneath. And then it's a similar principle to Town Hall 5, sending in your giants so they can get access to those splash defenses as soon as possible. Once the initial defenses are tanking, send in some wizards, but not all of them. Wall break into the base initially, and this is where I then like to use a healing spell just to boost my giants back up, sending in a couple of more wall breakers so they can get deeper into the base. And as defenses on the perimeter start firing in towards the giants, you might be able to reinforce with 1 or 2 wizards to help take those out. Your second healing spell, you don't want to wait too long so you don't have many giants left, but you do want to prioritize when they are being hit by the splash defenses. That's what's going to take out a big pack of your giants. For your clan castle, you can send in extra giants, or since you get access to the clan capital at Town Hall 6 and can reinforce your own troops, I would just take a root rider, send it in with the giants, and it will not get taken out. You will 3-star any base, no problem. Town Hall 7 brings you your Barbarian King, but we're not using him with a ground attack. All dragons. Super easy and very effective. You first want to identify the sweeper direction, because you will be flying behind the sweeper with your dragons, but from a flat side. So in this example, the sweeper points to the north. We will fly from either the southeast side or the southwest side. Once you've identified this, use 5 lightning spells on the furthest away air defense. If there are other defensive buildings next to it, make sure to try and hit those alongside the air defense, just so you can get a little bit extra value. But at Town Hall 7, a lot of bases make sure that you cannot do this next to the air defense. You then want to deploy your king on one of the corners you will be attacking from. However, since the clan castle is down to the south of the base, I will deploy the king at 3 o'clock to keep him out of range, and then I will spread the dragons across this entire southeast side. If you have small troops come out of the clan castle, such as archers or wizards, use your 1 remaining lightning spell on top of them to try and help speed the dragons through the defending clan castle, but a lot of the time it will be a defending dragon itself, and you will just have to let your dragons take it down. Therefore, use your final lightning spell on the air defense that your dragons will get to last. Having that good spread on the dragons means they can gradually help to funnel each other and have one smooth swoop through the base. For your king ability, if you can use it early to try and take out some buildings and assure dragons do not get distracted so they move to the air defense sooner, then you want to do that. Otherwise, you can just use it when it looks like the king is in danger, or to be honest, even if it goes off automatically, you'll be fine. Should this be a war attack and you can scout the base beforehand, if there's builder huts in each corner, you might want to drop 1 dragon from the army to take 5 archers and 3 balloons. When you do send that spread of dragons in, just place the 3 balloons towards the middle of where you've placed the dragons to help move into the center and get the air defense down a little bit quicker. When done correctly though, you will always get a 3-star. Town Hall 8 now sees the Archer Queen. You cannot take both the king or the queen. However, for this attack, you want to use the Archer Queen. This one is typically called a Goho attack, a golem to enter the base first alongside your other troops, and then once you've cracked into the middle, Hog Riders to swoop around the outside. For this one, you again want to attack from a flat side of the base, not a corner. Try to enter in towards the defending clan castle. If it is centralized though, you could just attack into the defending hero or wizard towers to try and assure you get those down to help the Hog Riders. Use a golem on one corner alongside 4 wizards. On the other side, use a clan castle root rider, or if you don't have access to that, a bunch of giants alongside another 4 wizards. These will funnel each corner. As soon as you've done that, you can place your queen in the center alongside 1 wall breaker. This will test for any traps in front of the wall, and then you can deploy 2 more to actually break the compartment so the queen can move in over. Once you have that first layer of wall broken, you can deploy your 4 Valkyries, because you know they will also enter into the center of the base, and you have 2 other wall breakers which you can deploy alongside this as well. As the defending clan castle comes out, you can use your poison spell on top, but the beauty of having the Archer Archer Queen at Town Hall 8 now is, should there be a defending dragon, which a lot of times there will be. Previously with this attack strategy, you needed wizards to fire up and take that down, or you had to lure it beforehand, but now you can just move on into the base and your Archer Queen will be there to help take out the defending dragon. I do like to use one healing spell for this push into the center of the base though, but mainly I try and hit the Valkyries as they're running in. Once these are approaching the middle of the base, you want to start deploying Hog Riders towards defenses on the outside. If you want to get technical, you normally deploy around about 3 or 4 Hog Riders per defense, but if you're not sure, you could just deploy them in a line so that they do start approaching separate defenses at different times. Essentially, you want to assure the defenses on the perimeter go down so they start to move in over towards any defenses that are centralized in the base. You will have 2 healing spells for the Hog Riders. If a giant bomb goes off early, make sure to use the healing spell, but essentially you are using these over the highest damage areas for the Hog Riders. If there's wizard towers or bomb towers, you probably will be using the healing spells in those locations, especially if there are gaps next to it and therefore a chance of a giant bomb going off. Assure that you place the healing spell slightly in front of the Hog Riders so that you do catch them in the spell initially, but they can move forward into the spell so that you are increasing the time that they are inside the healing spell. After your Hog Riders have moved in and start taking out defenses, once you get a second, deploy that remaining wizard to any non-defensive buildings where your Hog Riders entered from. You do have a barbarian and an archer as well in this army composition in case there's any corner builder huts, but you can deploy them on other buildings alongside the wizard as well. If done correctly, you will have numerous Hog Riders to help clean up non-defensive buildings after the defenses have gone down, and you will probably have your Valkyries and Queens survive as well. Town Hall 9 sees the Witches. Even though you unlock the Minion Prince, I would still use the Barbarian King and the Archer Queen. You can use their base equipment apart from the Earthquake Boots on the Barbarian King. Doesn't matter what level it is, we will only be using it to open walls within the base itself. Start by identifying where the clan castle is, and we will enter in towards the clan castle from a flat side of the base. The northeast, southeast, southwest, or northwest. In this example, I will attack from the southeast, so I will use my 2 jump spells to either corner. One at 3 o'clock to enter the right compartment, and one at 6 o'clock to enter the bottom compartment. Then deploy 3 golems spread evenly across this side. So one at the right, one in the middle, and one at the bottom. Your 10 witches spread evenly across this side as well. Once you've done this, place 1 wall breaker in the center to move in and test for any traps, followed by your other wall breakers to break in the initial compartment. You can then use your king, queen, and clan castle root rider. Should you not have access to a root rider, Valkyries will work just fine here. The jump spells allow the golems and witches to take out the compartments on either side of your heroes to assure they push right into the center of the base. As soon as the defending clan castle is lured and moves to your troops, make sure to use your poison. 99% of the time, it will move towards your heroes, and once the Archer Queen locks onto these troops, use the ability. For this demonstration, I've put an electro dragon in there because it's the most frustrating clan castle to deal with. After the clan castle goes down, you're assessing 2 things: when to use your healing spell and when to use the king ability. Keep an eye on the root rider or Valkyries, and as they are taking a lot of damage, deploy your healing spell, but make sure you allow the healing spell to be slightly in front so they move into the spell. Once the king starts hitting against a wall and is stuck, or you get to an area where you can open a lot of compartments into the middle of the base, press his ability. This will help to assure that your troops swoop through the base in one clean shot. As you are moving to the back half of the base, you really just have to focus on the Rage and the Freeze spell. You want to use the Rage where you can encompass, yes, a lot of your troops, but where there is the major damage from defenses, whether this be defending heroes or where there's just a clump of defenses together. Rage your troops, similar principle as the healing spell. Make sure to hit the troops with the Rage spell, but you can use it slightly in front to get better value as they move forward. The exact same principle applies with the Freeze freeze spell. Make sure you use this where there is the greatest damage onto your troops, and do not just freeze one defense. Typically, there will be a couple of defenses together that you can freeze all at the same time. This is something that, as you practice, will help massively as you progress through the Town Hall levels to get you your 3 stars. Town Hall 10 sees the Zap Dragons, and with the introduction of the Minion Prince, you can use him instead of the Barbarian King to support your air attack. The main piece of equipment for this strategy is the Queen's Giant Arrow, because we are stacking lightning and earthquake spells to take down all of the air defense. First, decide which area you will attack with your dragons: northeast, southeast, southwest, or northwest. This will be determined by the easiest route to the Inferno Towers, or the most dangerous defenses on the base. You will use 3 lightning spells and an earthquake spell to the 2 far side air defense. If you can, try to place the lightning spells onto defenses next to the air defense as well, because you should be able to take some of those down at the same time. In this example, I am attacking from the northwest side for the main reason that I am flying behind air sweepers. You always want to do that if you can, and I will Giant Arrow one of the remaining air defense. Sometimes you can get 2 air defense or an air defense and an air sweeper. If you can do that, then clearly that is good value. But in this scenario, all I need is 1 air defense because I still have enough lightning and earthquake for the final one. At this point, you will spread the dragons across that flat side you are entering from to assure that the dragons swoop through the base in one clean line, and they can help to funnel for each other. At the central point, this is where you will be deploying the Minion Prince behind your dragons, alongside the Stone Slammer. You need one donated in the clan castle at Town Hall 10. If you don't have a siege machine, honestly, you will be fine with just more balloons and a dragon. But since you can reinforce your own clan castle with raid medals, I would highly recommend taking a Stone Slammer. Why make the attack harder than it needs to be? The only thing you can time is your Minion Prince ability, which you want to assure you are freezing the core of the base, and if there are annoying clan castle troops such as archers come out, you can use it at that time to potentially fling them off the map. If you don't have your Minion Prince highly leveled up, by the way, you can just go with the standard king and queen setup for this approach. Wherever you're sending your queen, send the king on the opposite flank so that your dragons have an easier ride through the base. Once you've done the early stages of taking out the air defense and figuring out which angle you will attack from, you should cruise your way to 3 stars. At Town Hall 11, you can now take 3 heroes on your attack, but I would stick with the traditional king, queen, and warden for this one, being the Zap Witches. In terms of equipment, I would highly recommend the earthquake boots for the Barbarian King. You can pair this with a few different combinations. My favorite at Town Hall 11 is the Vamstash, keeps the king alive for so much longer, and for the Grand Warden you want the Eternal Tome and the Life Gem. You will start by taking out both Inferno Towers with your lightning spells. It is 4 lightning spells and 1 earthquake to take down an Inferno Tower, and make sure that you are looking to damage other defenses around the Inferno Tower. It doesn't matter whether they are in multi-mode or single mode, you want to just take these down. Once you have taken down both of the Inferno Towers, you will enter from whichever side gives you the earliest access to the Eagle Artillery. On each flank, you will use 1 golem followed by 3 witches, and then spread a line of the rest of the witches through the middle of these. You can then use 1 wall breaker to bust the initial wall, and after this is when you place your king, queen, Grand Warden, and the log launcher siege machine. You can then use your second super wall breaker and your wizard, but you want that first layer of wall broken so that your king and queen don't wander around the outside. They should move into the base, and you want to use an early Grand Warden ability so that you catch the king, queen, and the log launcher within the aura. You might choose to use that ability as defending clan castle troops are coming across to yours, but you do have a poison to help out here, and even if it's an air troop, you have your archer queen to fire up and take those out. The only other spell is an earthquake spell. You can use this on any high damage areas of the base. Try to clip as many defenses as possible. There's no battle builders at Town Hall 11, so you could use that at any point in the attack whenever you have a spare few seconds. The other main thing is the Barbarian King ability. You want to use the earthquake boots when you are approaching the middle of the base, and you're going to be able to open up access to as many compartments as possible. well. As a knock-on effect, if you can do this at the same time where there's a lot of defenses, the king will get damage onto those buildings. You might have also noticed I like to take a Root Rider in the clan castle, just so that once the log launcher opens up, the Root Rider can help to open up even more access through the base for my heroes and for my witches, to assure that you again get yourself 3 stars. Town Hall 12 sees the Drag Bat attack strategy using the Archer Queen, Grand Warden, and then either the Barbarian King or Minion Prince. I'll show you how you would use either of those during the attack. You want to try and fly behind air sweepers if possible, but the main thing is to assure you can get clear pathing of your dragons into the center of the base. You will do that by deploying your Archer Queen close to a corner on the side you're going to attack, but you want to line up the giant arrow so that you can hit 1, if not more, air defense, and maybe you can get a sweeper as well. Sometimes sweepers are pointing in opposite directions, so clearly you just line up the one which would be facing your dragons as you attack. To the opposite flank, you can use the Barbarian King to funnel. I like to use the Earthquake Boots alongside either the Rage Vial, Spiky Ball, Barbarian Puppet can even be good, but this pushes into the opposite compartment in which you then have a clean path for the dragons to get to the center. If you are using the Minion Prince, you can simply use the Overgrowth where you would have deployed the Barbarian King, and this means the dragons will still go straight into the center of the base, and you will merge in a Stone Slammer, Grand Warden, and the Minion Prince if you're using that. You do have to take the Eternal Tome with the Grand Warden, but you can take either the Life Gem or the Rage Gem alongside that. You probably want to use an early Tome as well, as an Eagle Artillery Fire is coming down, because that means you can capture as many of the dragons inside that as possible, but clearly you want to do that as you are approaching high damage areas. You do have one Rage spell with this strategy, and I like to use that either next to the Town Hall or the multi-target Inferno, because the splash damage is what you're trying to take down with the dragons to give your bats an easier ride. If you are using the Minion Prince, you want to use the ability whereby you can freeze as many of the dangerous defenses as possible, and if there are archers or witches come out of the clan castle that can be annoying, use your ability as the Minion Prince is facing those, because it will ping a lot of them off the map and it makes it so much easier for your dragons to get through. That said, we're now onto the portion of deploying the bats. When you've got the dragons through to the center, the Overgrowth spell will have probably wore off. You want to deploy all of your bat spells off the map so that they have time to form a wave, and it generates all of the strength by having the bats together. If possible, try not to deploy them direct into a splash damage defense, but it's not the end of the world if you do, because you have 3 freeze spells, and clearly you would have to freeze that defense straight away. It is nice if you can generate all of the bats, have them together in a wave, and then as they move through the base, as in this example, that's when you're approaching the splash defenses to the back end. That is multi-infernos, wizard towers. You've probably already taken the town hall, but hey, if your bats get close to it, you might need to freeze it. However, just assure you are freezing the splash defenses before the bats get there, because your bats go down very quickly. Even if your bats do go down towards the end, this strategy is so strong that you will have enough dragons left alive to get through the back end of the base anyway. And I really like how straightforward it is, setting up a funnel on either side with the dragons through the middle. Best of luck with your 3 stars. Town Hall 13 sees the Yeti and Super Wizard attack. There are a few variations of this one if you don't want to boost up the Super Wizards. Witches will work just fine. I think the Super Wizards give you that little bit more reliability, and you will want to assure you have the Earthquake Boots on the Barbarian King. I've paired it with the Rage Vial here for the example, but if you do have the Gauntlet or the Spiky Ball, those would be the best options. For the Archer Queen, I'd recommend the Healer Puppet, but I don't have it leveled up on my Town Hall 13, so that's the only reason I'm using the Giant Arrow, and I would pair this with either the Invisibility Vial or, if you have it, the Magic Mirror. The Grand Warden, the Eternal Tome is essential. You can then pair it with whatever you want. Since we're using an early Warden ability, the Life Gem is a good option, but the Healing or Rage Gem work fine as well. Royal Champion is not that big of a deal. I like the Electro Boots just because we will be sending her in by herself. However, you want to start this attack by identifying the splash defenses, and you want to attack into the side where you will be able to eliminate eliminate as much of that as possible. A lot of the time it will be from the opposite side of the town hall so that you can utilize the log launcher. But once you've chosen your side, deploy 2 Yetis and 2 Super Witches on either flank, and you'll give those a couple of seconds because you want to assure either side is funneled before you send everything into the middle. You can send 1 Super Wall Breaker right in the middle just to open that initial layer, make sure your heroes don't walk, but once the sides have had a little bit of time to funnel, then you can deploy the Yetis and Super Wizards. Do make sure that you put your heroes right in the center where you broke that wall though, alongside the log launcher. Wait a few seconds. If you're not taking any damage, don't worry about it, but you do want to try and assure that you use your Warden ability to capture the log launcher as well. Do not let that go down. At this stage, you're just watching the attack. You do have a poison on this one, so if Clan Castle troops come out, do try and time that on top of those. However, you want to wait on the rage spell until you get closer to the center of the base, because Yetis are inside the log launcher and they will bounce through the center of the base once you rage that to take out any of the core defenses. The town hall, if it's in the center, is a big area where you would want to be using the rage so that you can take that out. Now you're trying to look at the perimeter of the base as to where you're sending your royal champion in. You want to try and send her in as everything is in the center of the base tanking, and if you can, assure that the royal champion takes out one of the flanking wizard towers. That is a splash defense, so you don't want the bats hitting that. You can then send the bats in normally adjacent to the royal champion, but do deploy all of them right off to the side of the map, and as they approach any splash defenses, wizard towers, multi-infernos, or the scattershot, you do need to make sure that you freeze them early so that you don't lose a lot of bats. One little trick is if you do have a scattershot in a compartment that you can't quite get with your main push, you can actually drop all of the bat spells on top of that scattershot. Make sure to freeze any splash defenses around it, and there is a dead zone of the scattershot, so you can take that out. You do just have to make sure as they're taking out the scattershot, you are using your freeze onto remaining splash defenses. Honestly, the bat spells is the only part where you might need a bit of practice, but without them, this strategy is not as strong. It's still pretty easy to understand. Put them at the side, make sure you're freezing the splash, and it will make sure that your 3-star success is way higher. Best of luck with this attack. Town Hall 14 sees the mass dragons. This is so effective alongside the battle blimp. The reason we're not using lightning spells as we did with one of the lower Town Hall levels is because there's so much more high value buildings at Town Hall 14 that you might not always get the value you need out of the lightning spells, whereas you can be adaptable with freeze spells. Giant Arrow on the Archer Queen is pivotal. Pair that with the Healer Puppet, and for the Barbarian King, you want the Earthquake Boots alongside either the Gauntlet or the Spiky Ball. Should you not have those, other equipment will work well, but you might just have to support a little bit more with spells, which I'm going to show you. Grand Warden, the only pivotal equipment is the Eternal Tome, but the Healing Tome is also nice for this one. The first part of this attack is identifying where to send the Giant Arrow, and you need to be looking at where you can get 1 to 2 air defense, but where the Queen can walk down the flank of the base and be relatively protected after that as well. Sweepers are great to get with the Giant Arrow, but you have freeze spells to adapt, so really try and line up 2 air defenses if possible. Once you know which corner you will send your Queen from, you need to pick the adjacent corner for the Barbarian King. This doesn't matter as much, but more consider which side is better for the dragons. Can you either fly behind air sweepers, or more importantly, can you actually get to the Eagle Artillery relatively quick? If possible, when you are looking at this, try to choose an area where either the King or Queen are not going to get in range of the clan castle, because if it's ice golems in there, then the dragons won't even lure them, so you can have an easy ride through the base. In this example, I will send the Barbarian King to the 3 o'clock location because that gives me earlier access to the Eagle, even though I will be flying into an air sweeper. Once you've chosen these locations, always start with the Queen first so that you can concentrate on lining up the arrow. It's all about where you place her on that outside building to line it up and hopefully hit the air defense. You also have 2 skeleton spells, so I like to place one of them right out in front before the Barbarian King deployment, and in this example, a bunch of Tesla Pop. I decided to use both skeleton spells for the King here. You can be flexible with those. Pressing the King ability lets him get into that location and take it down. but you're also going to be quickly deploying your dragons and balloons in the middle of those heroes alongside the Grand Warden and the Minion Prince. Wait on the battle blimp just a couple of seconds. If you are attacking the opposite side of the town hall, you might need to delay this a little bit longer to assure that the blimp does get to the town hall, but when you do send that in, make sure that you press the Warden ability before the battle blimp moves out of the Warden's aura, because you need that protected up to the town hall. If you are flying into a sweeper, make sure to freeze it. Even if you freeze it twice, generally speaking, when you've used the Grand Warden ability as well, it's a good time to use a rage spell on the dragons to power them forward. As a general rule of thumb, I also like to use a rage on top of the town hall alongside a freeze so that your balloons and Dragon Rider inside the battle blimp can quickly take this out. The last freeze spell you might want to use on either scatter shots or multi-infernos. They can actually beam through your dragons pretty quickly, or if there's a single target inferno locked onto a dragon that you can quickly get, make sure to freeze that instead. Either way, you should have more than enough power if you've done the initial part of the attack correctly, that you can push through the rest of the base in order to get yourself your 3 stars. Town Hall 15 sees the Hydra approach, another dragon variation, at least for this level, because whilst the strategies in this video are effective, they are designed to be easy, and the dragons lean into that. We will be setting up pathing for the dragons with the Barbarian King and Archer Queen. So for the Barbarian King, the Earthquake Boots is a great piece of equipment in combination with either the Spiky Ball or the Giant Gauntlet. For the Archer Queen, you do want the Giant Arrow and Healer Puppet. When you're first scouting the base, you do want to try and attack from the opposite side of the town hall so that you can fly the blimp through, but most importantly as well, you're looking at the clan castle. You want to assure that your Barbarian King and your Queen, when you're setting up the pathing, are not going to lure the clan castle troops, because if it is ice golems in there, well then they would not be lured if the dragons were the only troops in range, because they cannot fire at air troops, and therefore you can just take out the clan castle as if they weren't even there. This is why if the clan castle and the town hall are on one side of the base, you would always attack from the other, even if you're flying into air sweeper, because you have freeze spells, you have the Queen's Giant Arrow, you're able to adapt to get around sweepers, but if you can avoid the clan castle, it will help your attack drastically. You will start, once you have identified which side you're attacking from, by looking at where you can get good Giant Arrow value. Since you would be using the King on one corner of this side and the Queen on the other, you're really determining it on which corner is it best to get a Giant Arrow value, where you can get maybe multiple air defense, a sweeper, or if there's an invisibility spell tower in the center of the base, you would have to be connecting the Giant Arrow to that. I usually start with the Barbarian King first. In this example, since I want him to move to the left, I place him to the left of one of the buildings, therefore he is closer to all of the buildings to the left of him. I do have a baby dragon in the army. This just means that you can set the funnel on the opposite side of this, whereby the king will move into the base a little bit as well, and that is then when you can use his ability to get good value and essentially take out this corner. As you're doing this, you can be starting with the Archer Queen at the other side of the base, and again, it is all just about trying to line up the Giant Arrow as best as possible. You might need to take out one building first to then get the direct angle you need on the next building. One note as well is that we do have one skeleton spell. You could just put it on top of the monolith as your dragons are moving through. Dragons, balloons, Dragon Riders, Grand Warden, and Minion Prince, they are all deployed in between the King and Queen, but you are waiting on the battle blimp. Depending on where the town hall is, depends on how long you will wait. If the town hall is at the far side of the base, you want the dragons to take down a little bit of the base first before you place the blimp, because when you use the Warden ability, you want to assure that battle blimp is getting to that town hall. If the town hall is in the center of the base though, you can send in the blimp a little bit earlier. Just make sure you press the Grand Warden ability before it exits his aura. If there are air sweepers left up, just make sure to freeze them. You have a couple of freeze spells. Ideally, you're using those freeze early so the battle blimp can get to the town hall, where you're using a rage, and then your clone spells slightly either side so that you can clone them over the top of any key building buildings that are around the town hall. Should there be an invisibility spell tower next to the town hall that has not yet activated, you would also want to freeze the town hall and that invisibility spell tower just to assure you can get it down. Now, what I have found through the minion prints is don't try and wait until you can get 10 out of 10 value. If you see he is facing in a direction where you're going to freeze a bunch of defenses, just use the ability then, because if you wait too long, you might essentially not get the right moment. The ability might go off automatically, so just take it whenever you can get good value towards the back end of the base. Use your cleanup minions on any trash buildings left behind. But if there's nothing, then do just try to place them out of range of any defenses on the far end of the base so that you speed things up, make sure you don't time fail, and get yourself your 3 stars. Town Hall 16 sees the Root Riders and Valkyries. You can open this up with a Royal Champion charge and recall her to set defensive pathing if you prefer, but I think it is a bit easier to just use the Barbarian King. To do it the most successful, you will want the Phoenix Pet on the King alongside the Earthquake Boots and the Spiky Ball. For the Archer Queen, you will need the Healer Puppet. Magic Mirror is probably your best option unless there is an invisibility spell tower in the base, then the Giant Arrow can be used to trigger that. Grand Warden has the Healing Tome and Eternal Tome. Royal Champion has the Hog Rider Puppet, and the Electro Boots can be good to take out defending CC troops as you move through the base. When you first take a look at the base you're attacking, it is all about how you can most easily cut the defensive funnel using the Barbarian King so that your Root Riders cleanly move around the base. Generally speaking, you do not want to dive in towards the clan castle because if there's ice golems in there, that can limit the value you get from your king. In this example, I will dive into one of the Rage Tower compartments, and when you take a look at the buildings on the outside, you can place your king to the left or right of one of the buildings to know exactly where he will walk to the next closest building. It does mean you have to cut off the funnel on the building past where you want the king to move in, and you can simply do that with a Super Barbarian. I do use an Ice Golem to help protect the king and get him into the base a little bit deeper, because you do want to assure you use the ability once he gets closer to the inside of the base and those more dangerous defenses. It all depends on how easy it is to path Root Riders through the base, but it can be quite good to go straight into the town hall actually, because you just eliminate the poison effect from the off, and you can use your warden ability after the town hall has gone down since we're using the healing tome. Once you've identified where you're going to attack though, you want to use the siege barracks and the queen to the opposite side of where you place the king, so that you're creating the funnel either side for the Root Riders and Valkyries to move through the middle. In this example, directly in towards the town hall. First, you place your Root Riders, followed by your balloons. Spread the balloons out very slightly in case they're seeking air mines. Quickly deploy the healers, your Grand Warden, and the Royal Champion, but then hold on the Valkyries. You want to wait until the first layer of wall is broken from the Root Riders so that the Valkyries have clear pathing in over. Make sure to deploy your Root Riders in one spot, so the healer's splash hits all of them. You have 3 rage spells for this strategy, so I like to use one early as soon as you're entering this first compartment. There's bound to be some strong defenses in there. The other benefit of diving into the town hall in this example is that I can take out the clan castle troops early so that ice golems don't become a nuisance once you're in the core of the base. Do try and hold your warden ability a little bit if you can though. So I try and wait until I get through those CC troops in this example and then take down the town hall so they're inside the poison. Let your troops take a little bit of damage first as well, because yes, you want to use the Eternal Tome to protect your troops, but you actually want to assure you're using the Healing Tome to boost your Root Riders back up to full health as well. Obviously, I'm trying to explain everything about the strategy here, but you have 2 overgrowth spells, and you want to use these in a location that will help the pathing of your Root Riders. If you can narrow the defensive path so that, again, Root Riders aren't splitting, healers aren't having to try and heal multiple groups of Root Riders, then you will have better success. Yes, in terms of heavy defenses, I only lock down a single target Inferno, but I get a couple of builder huts. The sweeper is actually pretty important to not be pushing the healers back. But what it does is allows me to path direct into the rage tower area. And that's again where I can use spells to blast through that, alongside the queen ability on the outside of the base to make sure my Root Riders are still moving through the inner area and focusing on the defenses. Obviously, you have to keep an eye on the overgrowth. Once it wears off, you will more than likely use your second overgrowth in the same location, but you don't have to. You could use it somewhere else if it's going to help path your Root Riders through the base better. You have a skeleton spell to try and distract single target defenses, whether this is a single target Inferno, a ricochet cannon, or generally I like to use this on the monolith. But do try and place the skeleton spell so it is in range of that defense you are trying to distract. Obviously, you have lots of freeze spells here as well that you can be flexible with, but you will have to hold on to some spells for when the overgrowth wears off, because likely you will have locked down a couple of key defenses. The other thing I haven't mentioned is the super barbarians. Whilst you can use a couple initially if needed for the barbarian king, generally you're using those to try and keep the Root Riders in the base. So you're just gradually deploying them as you move around the base. Once you notice that the outside area is not necessarily getting taken out as effectively with the siege barracks or your archer queen anymore. This strategy does require a little bit of practice to work out how to set the defensive funnel for the Root Riders, but as you move up through town hall levels, you're not going to be able to just spam everything in one spot and consistently beat any base. This is still a super straightforward strategy once you get the hang of it, and I am sure it will bring you lots of 3-star success. Town Hall 17 sees the Mass Dragons and Mass Invisibility spells. Out of all of these strategies at Town Hall 17, the Dragons and the Root Riders and Valkyries are the two most popular. The Root Riders and Valkyries are arguably a little bit stronger in my opinion, but the Dragons are just so easy to perform, and I wreck bases using this strategy as well. It does require the Electro Boots of the Royal Champion. Obviously, the higher level you have of that, the more effective this is going to be, but you don't necessarily need it maxed out either, as long as you can play this attack correctly. I do like to use the Haste Vial. Some people use the Rocket Spear or the Hog Rider puppets, but the Haste Vial, you will see, helps you to power through defenses very quickly and gives you some health recovery. Giant Arrow and Healer Puppet on the Queen, alongside the Eternal Tome and the Healing Tome on the Grand Warden. Let's start this out by explaining the Royal Champion dive, because as long as you get this right, you're essentially good to go. What you're looking for is where can you eliminate the high damage points for the dragons. So for example, if both sweepers are pointing in one direction and you want to fly behind those with the dragons, well, you would enter in front of the sweepers with the Royal Champion. When you first deploy the Royal Champion, because we're using the Phoenix on the Royal Champion, you will have to use an invisibility spell. Essentially, every 4 seconds you are using another invisibility spell to keep your Royal Champion safe as she's chipping through the defenses, and the only skill in this strategy really comes from knowing where the Royal Champion is going to move, and then you can turn defenses invisible to repath her, but also just skip a defense so that the aura will take out the defense you've skipped. There are a couple of defenses that are very fast acting in their animation: the Town Hall, the Monolith, the Defending Royal Champion. So if you're not quite quick enough with an invisibility spell, you can take a little bit of damage from those, but it's absolutely fine because you have the Haste Vial, and once you get a little bit deeper into the base where you have those higher HP defenses, that's where you want to use the Haste Vial, especially if you see she is locked into an area where she's not really going to move too far. She's going to just be taking out all of those defenses in the area. You can keep turning her invisible. Essentially, just keep the Royal Champion going, but as you're getting towards the end of your invisibility spells, when you maybe have 1 or 2 left over, you have to start considering, do I keep the Royal Champion alive here? Is there enough high value to use these extra spells? Because you know she's going to come back alive with the Phoenix anyway, and your invisibility spells could then be used for the Archer Queen in the other portion of the attack. Obviously, at this point, you have carved a huge chunk of the base out, so you're looking at where can I get the best giant arrow value to take out, hopefully, 2 air defense. Should there be an invisibility spell tower in the center of the base that you have not taken out with the Royal Champion, you need to assure that you hit that. Sometimes you can even get good damage onto the Town Hall with the Royal Champion, but not quite take it down. You might want to hit the Town Hall with the giant arrow to assure that you take it down before your dragons even get there. But either way, once you've sent the arrow, you're then deploying your dragons in between the gap you created with the Royal Champion and where you placed the Queen, because she, alongside the siege barracks, are going to move down the flank. Do not deploy all of your dragons across that area, though, because on the opposite side of the gap you created, likely there are a lot of buildings that are not covered from defenses, and you want to use 1 or 2 dragons over there so that you don't time fail, because that is the biggest thing about this strategy. It does essentially use up virtually the full 3 minutes if you're not careful. However, you really only have to worry about the Rage, the Warden ability, and the Minion Prince ability after this. Yes, you might have 1 or 2 invisibility spells left over. That is where it comes down to a little bit of flexibility as you get better with the strategy. Generally speaking, though, you want to wait until your dragons have taken a decent amount of damage, but they are not going down too fast before you use the Warden ability, because the Healing Tome will boost them back up in health. If you do see, as you're approaching the middle of the base, there's a bunch of air mines popping, that might be a good time to use the ability. The Rage spell, clearly you want to use over any high damage areas. This might even be in combination with the Eternal Tome, but try to save the Minion Prince ability to freeze any high value targets to the back end of the base. Essentially, the attack is a breeze as long as you get good value with the Royal Champion dive. If you find as you're practicing, you're losing the Royal Champion way too early, you might want to drop 2 of the invisibility spells for a revive spell just to give you that second chance. And I hope this video has helped you in gaining more 3 stars. If you do need defensive layouts, though, I will pop my best bases video for every Town Hall level on your screen. Enjoy the rest of your day.